It's Cut the Chase Sports Podcast. We're talking NFL draft preview, defensive backs, linebackers, edge rushers, the entire thing, the entire side of the defensive ball, man. Here we go.
ATL Jacob, ATL Jacob.
I'm your host, Chase Yantz. I'm, along with my co-host Brady King. What's going on, Brady?
Not too much. Apologize for the change of scenery. Getting back to, I've done a couple episodes in the past in the same room, but definitely a little mix up. But back and ready to go.
Nothing wrong with a little change in scenery, man. Just keep the people on their toes overall, so nothing wrong with that at all. I had changed the scenery myself with this whole haircut, man. I mean, this was a big adjustment, big thing getting used to, but we're adjusting into the NFL draft period. March Madness is over, the draft is here. We're excited to bring you some draft content, talk a lot of defense tonight, all things defense actually. Before we get into the video, drop a like on this video, subscribe. We're on the 200 subscriber grind, and just stay tuned with us, man. This is got some good content coming right here, man. So we're not gonna waste any time. Let's talk about some notable edge rushers in this draft. We talk about Will Anderson, being the headline guy going in this draft from Alabama. I mean, he's 6'4", 253's been he's been the best pass rusher in college football the last 2 years. He's been compared to all the greats and everything. What do you think of Will Anderson overall?
Yeah, so ever since his freshman year in college, I believe he led the SEC in sacks or pressures, one of the two, his freshman year. And he's been very high on the radar of many, many people. And last year particularly, he was arguably the best player in all of college football, 2021. That's up for debate, but he was phenomenal. I believe he had like 15 and a half sacks, 15 sacks, something like that. Ridiculous, quick off the ball. It's one of the things I noticed about him. Just a great player overall. And then last year had another good season. Not quite as good, but still very explosive.
Yep, we'll get more deeper into our evaluations on these players as we get into it. It really seems like in the edge rusher department that it's Will Anderson, and then there's a bunch of other people below that. Some of those guys, Myles Murphy, Tyree Wilson, Nolan Smith, Lucas Van Ness. Who's a guy that really sticks out to you from that, 4 or 5 people list that I just put out there?
Yeah, I feel like Van Ness really sticks out from those guys. Not necessarily because I'm saying he's the next best, but because he didn't start a game in college, which is really strange for somebody being projected that high. But the more and more that I've looked at it, apparently it's because Iowa does like a seniority thing. The senior is usually going to start, but he still played a lot of snaps. He played like the most snaps or the second most snaps out of any D-end on the team still. But that's just why he stands out to me.
Okay. I mean, there's obviously, that Iowa defense was so strong. They, were led by Van Ness and Jack Campbell, who we'll talk about in a little bit. The Iowa defense obviously was a headline for that team. Obviously, they had no offense at all. So all eyes were, painted to the defense. Van Ness is definitely going to be a very good prospect coming out here. Obviously, you look at Nolan Smith, who ran, I think he ran the 4.4s or high 4.3s as an edge rusher in the combine. What did you take from that?
Yeah, so I'm one of those guys that doesn't really put much into the combine, but it just further proves his explosiveness still. Because I think, like, let's say a guy runs a 4.5 at the combine, but you've already watched his film. It's like, well, yeah, like we've seen what he can do with that 4.5, so why does it matter? But that's like the good side of this is that we've seen how fast he is in game, which he only proved at the combine. So I think it's really impressive. He's a great athlete for sure. And just one of the leaders of Georgia's team in general.
Yeah, I mean, they're back-to-back national champions. He was a big part of it. I know he got hurt down the stretch. Big loss, but they were able to, fill those shoes in and win another national championship. When you look at the combine, it's more of, guys, a chance for guys to improve their stock. Some guys have taken it the wrong way, and they've actually plummeted their stock from the draft combine. You look at a lot of quarterbacks overall, but I mean, these defensive guys, it kind of gives them it gives them a way and a spectacle to, maybe run the 40 and say like, oh, this dude really is flying. Nolan Smith really is flying, and
Yep.
it just gives a you know a dry cut, of like, you have the 40, you have the vertical jump, you have the broad jump, all that stuff, just to give some concrete numbers for these, for these draft analysts and scouts to look at for when they're making their next pick. What's your top 5 edge rushers, man? Let's get into the list.
Yeah. So let's get into this. One of my favorite things to do, is just guess who will be the best, even though you don't really have a clue, but it's fun to do. Based off of what I've been watching. So let's start with number 1. Number 1, I have Will Anderson. Goes without saying. I think it's a pretty easy choice just due to his dominance the past 2 years in college football, and definitely one of the best prospects in this draft overall. Number 2 was a tough one between even maybe all 4 of these guys. They're all in the same category. I went with Nolan Smith. I think he's the same level prospect as like a Trayvon Walker from last year, who shouldn't have gone number 1, but I still think he's very explosive, very fast. I like his leadership ability as well, and I feel like he plays hard and just he's used to winning. So went with him at 2. 3, I have Miles Murphy. Also, ever since his freshman year, he's been a starter at Clemson, 3-year starter, productive, explosive, very very good athlete. So definitely deserving of that 3rd spot. Number 4, I got Tyree Wilson. Man, Tyree Wilson is an interesting one because, I haven't watched much Texas Tech, so I had to maybe watch a little bit more of him to understand why people were putting him so high. And I did come out of that thinking he's a little bit overrated. I've been seeing a lot of people thinking he is edge 2 lately, but I went with these other 2 slightly ahead of him. Still impressed. Definitely has a variety of moves he uses to win at the line of scrimmage. But just couldn't put him any higher than 4. Then 5, I have Isaiah Foskey. This dude is very menacing to look at. There is plays I feel like he takes off, but the plays which he needs to fix, but the plays he goes hard. He really is tough to block. And then honorable mention I just want to talk about, since I talked about it earlier, is Lucas Van Ness. He would have been my number 6 edge rusher, but he was just slightly off of these 5. So that's my top 5 edge rushers.
One thing I take away from your list is the fact that, a lot of people have Tyree Wilson up there as a top 5 pick overall. What was the big thing that really separated? Obviously we're not doing, a mock draft right now, but what was the big thing that really separated yourself with Tyree Wilson not being, maybe the second best pass rusher?
Yeah, so it wasn't really a thing. It's nothing he does bad. It's just I don't think he's as explosive as either Nolan Smith or Murphy. Honestly, I think Murphy is the most, out of the 3, is the best pure just defensive end. He'll beat an offensive tackle one-on-one. And I think Nolan Smith is the best at coming from depth, maybe playing that outside linebacker spot and just running right past a defensive end with speed, which he showed, and playing with aggression. So it's the reason is because the other 2 had a special ability that they're the best at compared to out of the 3, which he's just probably the in-between on both sides. So he's still a good player, but he's just not as good as the other 2 at creating havoc, in my opinion. But still definitely a good player nonetheless.
Most definitely. I mean, you look at Nolan Smith probably is going to end up in a 3-4 system. You think about it as an outside linebacker, pass rusher, could drop in the coverage, all that good stuff. But when it comes to those linebackers, they're really able to stick out. They're able to pop. All right, talk about Ohio State. We talk about guys, receivers and guys, trying to get in special teams, and they're trying to pop. All right, but Tyree Wilson, I'll get more in this comparison in a minute, but he's a big prototype body, but it's just he does a lot of good things, but just nothing that really is just, popping off the chart and anything like that. Yep. But, let's roll into linebackers, man. Some, one guy that really sticks off the chart, Jack Campbell. I mean, Jack Campbell, best linebacker in the country. I think that's pretty obvious right there. From Iowa, he was the quarterback of the defense. What makes Jack Campbell so special?
So, I was actually thinking about this. We were talking about the takes we had preseason that were good because each of us had some good takes. and most of the one that I thought of was like Quentin Johnston being on the top 10 receivers was one of my better takes. But then I remember I had Jack Campbell as like a top 5 player in the Big Ten, I believe, or top something like that. So that was one of my other better takes because I've been watching him for a while, so I know I just watch a lot of Iowa, so I've noticed this guy. He's just always he's in on every tackle. I mean, this dude knows how to play the classic middle linebacker role. He's good in coverage. He's very athletic. Can blitz. He picked off C.J. Stroud first drive of the second half this year with a one-handed grab when Julian Fleming was cutting across the middle. So this dude can really do it all. I think he should be a first-round pick.
Most definitely. I mean, he's the prototype linebacker, honestly. And there's a lot of guys that are prototype this and that, but really Jack Campbell is the guy that just sticks out over the pack. Let's get your short linebackers list. Obviously, the edge rushers are deep, but the linebackers not so much. Jack Campbell's the headline in this. What do you got?
Yeah, so Jack Campbell definitely number one due to the reasons I said. Just overall the best linebacker in the draft. Trenton Simpson from Clemson, a good athlete, 2-year starter. Again, this isn't a great linebacker class. I would probably take him mid to late second round, actually, but that's still a good player nonetheless. And then third, I thought this guy would be higher based off his freshman and sophomore season, but he just never really got much better, is Noah Sewell out of Oregon, brother of Penei Sewell. Still a good player, again, very hard hitting. That's his best attribute is you're going to feel him when he gets a clean hit on you. And just overall good player, but not a great linebacker class. 2 guys I was considering on this list were Drew Sanders from Arkansas and Ivan Pace Jr. from Cincinnati. 2 other good linebackers, but those were my top 3.
Okay. I mean, yeah, obviously, Campbell sticks out over the pack. Trenton Simpson had a pretty good season overall at Clemson, and then Noah Sewell, like you said, it's his first 2 years at Oregon. Productive, obviously, with nice having that Sewell name when your brother's a top 6 pick in the NFL draft a couple years ago. But he has a nose for football. He's around it all the time. One of the best linebackers out west, and just the improvement factor was the thing. Obviously, everybody was kind of hoping for him to have that big jump from year 2 to year 3, so he could take that. Maybe giving Jack Campbell a run for his money, but obviously didn't happen. So we'll see where Noah Sewell ends up. I think he could very well be a day 1 starter. I could tell you that a week 1 starter in the NFL. So that's the edge and linebackers list right there. I got a couple of player comparisons to look at. First off, we got Will Anderson, arguably the best defensive player in this draft from Alabama, 6'4", 253 pounds. When I look at Will Anderson, I see a dominant run stopper. He is, he's around the football, man. He is, getting in the backfield. He's shedding off blocks really well. He's finding the running back and just punishing him to the ground. Obviously, when you're, in the NFL draft, you're playing any type of sport at the highest level, there is athleticism. His straight line speed is very impressive, but his lateral speed, I think, is what it really is. I mean, he's able to kind of shed off blocks and really beat guys to the spot and just take him down for tackles for loss. He's an absolute machine at that. And he's got a fantastic nose for the football. He's able to, shed off offensive tackles, get to the quarterback, again, find running backs, even break up some plays, some screen game and stuff like that. He's able to, if they're pushing him inside, he's able to, make a nice tackle there. The player comparison I have for him, Shaq Barrett from Tampa Bay. Shaq Barrett, I believe a couple years ago led the league in sacks. Will Anderson definitely could do that, depending on where he goes and the system he's in. But I mean, I think Shaq Barrett and him have the same kind of body type. I don't. Will Anderson isn't. He's not an imposing stature. 6'4", 253 is pretty big, but when it comes to these linemen that are 6'7", 6'8", 280, 290, 300 pounds, I mean, it's not really a whole lot. It's just that, the whole sheer speed factor and all that's going to play into effect. But I'll tell you this, personally, I like a vicious pass rusher. Will Anderson is a, very structured, very good pass rusher. I just don't think he has that extra vicious edge right there. Obviously, he could develop it in the league, but I just don't think he has that vicious factor just yet. Maybe there's just a little more I would like to see out of him there, but the player comp right there, Shaq Barrett. Moving on down, Tyree Wilson. A lot of people, believe that he'll go in the top 10. 6'6", 271. When I just look at him, I think a playground bully. He's that prototype size that you want out of the defensive end. He's the size of a guy like a Myles Garrett, but he doesn't move like him at nowhere. Doesn't move like him. Like, oh, all right. So, but he is that prototype size of a defensive lineman, defensive end, whatever you want. Interior versatility. He can play 3 tech. He can be a pass rusher on the outside. He's very good when it comes to both of those facets. I think whoever gets their hands on him, I think they're going to have a very fun time of just rotating him in and out and being a chess piece on the defensive line. And then I really think he's got some powerful hands, man. I mean, I know defensive ends talking about getting to the quarterback and moving guys off. I think he's got some very powerful hands and finishes on some offensive tackles and really just throws them back, on their ass and gets after the quarterback. So I think Tyree Wilson does a very good job of that. My player comp with him, the run stopping version of Carlos Dunlap. They're the same size, around the same weight. Carlos Dunlap was a great pass defender as a defensive end. He got his hands up, deflected a ton of passes. I just think that him and Tyree Wilson look kind of the same body type overall, but I think Tyree Wilson, is the run stopping version of a veteran like Carlos Dunlap. And then the linebacker, we'll talk, Jack Campbell, we talked about him a couple times, 6'5", 249. He's a very, very big linebacker to be playing in the middle. I mean, when you talk about him, man, finisher, man. He causes a ton of fumbles. He lays the wood. Don't take it that way. But I mean, he's really good at just finishing plays and taking, getting takeaways and all that, interceptions, fumbles, just causing life in that Iowa defense and taking life away from the opposing offense. His downhill attack is fantastic. He's got great initial reads, pre-snap reads. He's able to, shed blockers really well and get to the point of attack. And then he's got great awareness in the run and pass, against maybe a power run, against a power run. He's right there in the middle, ready to swallow the running back up. And then on the stretch, he's able to, beat guys to the spot and get tackles for loss. And then pass, like you said, man, he's a very good pass defender. Man, he can guard running backs out of the backfield. He can guard some tight ends in zone. He's very well of knowing his spatial awareness overall. And that's obviously why he's the best linebacker in this draft class. It's the man from Iowa. But gotta appreciate those edge rushers and linebackers. This is going to be a very fun class looking for the edge rushers, linebackers, not so deep, but the top 3 guys in there are probably all going to find themselves starting or at least getting a significant amount of playing time in the National Football League in 2023. Let's shift gears though to the defensive backs. We're going to talk about notable people in this, about Devin Witherspoon. He's people look at him as the clear-cut number 1 guy. Not too sure how you look at that on your list. We'll get to that in just a second. But Devin Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez from Oregon. He's got a lot of stuff going on with him. Had a very good combine overall. So we'll get into that. And then Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State. Obviously, his dad, Joey Porter, played for the Pittsburgh Steelers for a very long time. Joey Porter Jr. had a great season at Penn State. Who are some guys off the top of your head when you think about this defensive back draft class, corners in particular?
Some interesting guys are guys such as Keely Ringo, who came into the season as the number one corner projected. He had his moments that he was really good, but he also had some bad moments as well. And he's just a big dude. Like he's a big and fast player, but some people think he struggles in man coverage sometimes. So guys such as Devon Witherspoon, who basically blocked down everything this season. I mean, I can't think of it. I don't think he got beat one single time by any receiver in terms of a whole game matchup. Another interesting one is Cam Smith from South Carolina. He usually plays as a slot corner. He also had a great season against pretty much everyone he went against, especially Tennessee. He had a great game against Tennessee, guarded Jalen Hyatt. And those are 3 guys that just stand out, not necessarily because they're the 3 best, but just because of their storylines.
Yeah, a lot of storylines with these DBs, man. I mean, you talk about, Keely Ringo, of course, coming from Georgia. You look at him as more of, the guy that would be playing, on a zone scheme, a zone system in the National Football League. A lot of teams, run primarily zone stuff when you look at the receivers that they're going to have to go up against. So you don't want to have him playing man against a guy like Justin Jefferson twice a year or Jamar Chase or somebody like that. So it's you look a lot into that stuff when you're looking at some of these big time corners at big time schools like Keely Ringo at Georgia. Devon Witherspoon, a lot of talk's been with him out of Illinois. Like you said, he really didn't get beat at all this entire season. I mean, obviously they were playing the Big Ten West, so a lot of teams weren't pass happy like Ohio State or Penn State or whoever you want to call it. So I mean, this is going to be very interesting to see with him. He didn't participate at the combine, so that's some interesting stuff there. And it's not the biggest worry in the world. And then guys like Deontay Banks that weren't mentioned. Julius Brent's down the list. He's an afterthought, but also a sleeper corner as well. I'm going to give you the floor though. Your top 5 corner prospects.
All right, so corner is probably the defensive position that I feel like I know the most about because I'm more of an offensive guy, but let's get into it. So number 1, I have Joey Porter Jr. I thought he's the best DB in this class for the past 3 years. So basically since he entered college, I thought he was the best DB in this class. He has gone up against maybe the best receivers out of any of these guys, one-on-one. He's gone up against many Jahan Dotson in practice every day for the 2 previous years. He has gone one-on-one against Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Marvin Harrison Jr. He's going straight up against Rashad Bateman. This guy has played just about everyone you can think of, and he has won most of those. He has played well in every single one of those matchups except for the one against Marv. He's shown flashes against even Olave and Garrett. He had some really good plays. He's extremely long and physical, and sometimes his temper can get the best of him, but I think he's just the most talented corner in this class for sure. Devon Witherspoon, though, at number 2, extremely, extremely efficient, never really gets beat, quick. I mean, this guy's a great can't-miss corner. If you want a guy that's no chance of being a bust, that's probably where you want to go with Devon Witherspoon. Number 3, I have Clark Phillips III. So I have him a little bit higher than most, but I just think he's another guy where Marvin Harrison is the only person I've seen get the best of this guy. And that was last year in the Rose Bowl, but he played great against Jordan Addison. Maybe gave up a catch or 2, but that's about it. And he just seems to always have the right technique and be in the right spot at the right time. Number 4, I have Christian Gonzalez. He had a great season here in the Pac-12 this year. Great speed. He's a very athletic corner, and he's also long. I also think there's not really much of a chance that he's a bust either. Him and Witherspoon are 2 of the most solid corners I've watched. Definitely going to be a good player. Number 5 was a toss-up between so many people, between even Ringo, Brent, Banks, and even Elias Ricks out of Bama. But I went with Banks. I thought Banks had a great season this year. The speed, he ran a great time at the combine. And then on film this year, he didn't really get beat much at by any receivers that he went up against either. So Banks had a great year this year. And that's my list, top 5 corners.
Thoughts on our enemy, Julius Brents from Michigan?
Julius Brents from Michigan?
I just mixed it up. DJ Turner from Michigan.
Oh, DJ Turner. Okay.
Yeah, I was looking at the list right there, and I kind of mixed those 2 up there.
DJ Turner was nowhere close to the list. I'll tell you guys that. DJ Turner was bad as a corner at Michigan, but come at me all you want. I'll put Will Johnson up there maybe in a couple of years if he continues to play good, but not DJ Turner.
we always have to go an episode where you get to throw some Michigan slander. We absolutely love that, man.
I will. I'm glad to. Like JJ McCarthy.
Exactly. You can hear all the slander, when we come to the season with Brady and JJ McCarthy, man. So, that's that. Absolutely. There. Let's roll right into your safeties, man. Brian Branch looking like he's one of the headlines when it comes to that from Alabama. It's a duo from Bama and Branch, and You got Jordan Battle, the two back there. What do you think of that Bama duo that's going to the draft this year?
Yeah, so that Bama duo, at times, they make up for their corner duo that did not hold up this year. But, yeah, so definitely two really good safeties. I feel like at times Bama rotated too much at safety and got other guys out there that really did not play well. But these two were definitely the two most solid. Battle's been a starter for he's been a 3-season starter and also played a lot as a freshman. So he's played all 4 years, many snaps. Ohio State decommit, I must add, back in the Urban retirement era. He was an Ohio State commit, flipped him. Really wish we could have held him onto him and not had to watch Bryson Shaw and Ronnie Hickman for 2 years. Yeah. But definitely a great player, very physical, and has a nose for intercepting the football. And then Brian Branch, just a great athlete. I did not like him his freshman year. He started as a true freshman at Bama and really that was the season that was the best Bama team ever in 2020. But he honestly was like kind of the mole in their defense. But still, he obviously got better. Saban saw something in him. And the past 2 seasons, he's been electric and definitely a great safety for Bama these past 2 seasons.
I'll be talking about Brian Branch in the next segment. Brady, this is your top 3 safeties. Go away.
All right. So top 3 safeties. Number 1. So this is actually an unpopular pick. I've seen a lot of people have him anywhere from like the 5 to 7 range, which is a little weird to me because everything I've seen, I feel like he's the most consistent safety, and that's who I would take to be safe. Christopher Smith, always. I don't think I've ever seen Christopher Smith get beat just like single-handedly and have a play be really his fault. And I feel like whenever Georgia needs a big play, it's always Christopher Smith making that big play, which could be a pick six. This year against LSU, the game was actually not going too well for Georgia. They ended up killing them. But Christopher Smith returned a field goal for a pick six, but he was just being very aware, or not a pick six, but a kick six. Just a great player overall. He's my number 1 safety in this draft. Brian Branch, number 2. I would have never thought I'd be saying this a few years back, but here I am. Brian Branch, very athletic, great tackler. Definitely good at coming downhill and making plays, and also good man-to-man, so definitely a good player. Then Jordan Battle, free safety at heart, but a big free safety that loves to hit. He's gonna take away the middle of the field a lot of the time, and he really punishes you if you try to come across the middle. And just a great player overall. Battle, Branch, and Christopher Smith kind of separate from the rest of the pack, other than maybe Brandon Joseph from Notre Dame / Northwestern. He would have been my runner-up on this list.
Well, there you go. The top 3 safeties list right there. Looking at the defensive backs, man, the corner room is deep. The safety room is thin. You kind of got to balance it out when it comes to that. It's a very interesting thing. So, let's roll in the player comps. Picked out 2 corners and 1 safety. Picked out Brady's number 4 corner, Christian Gonzalez from Oregon, 6'1", 197. When I look at him on film, smooth play from him. Obviously, fits the role of a pretty quality corner overall. I like the way he moves with receivers. Just doesn't seem phased at all. I think his confidence is pretty high, for sure. Comfortable on the island, man. He is, when it comes to run and pass. When it comes to pass, obviously when you're a cornerback, you gotta be comfortable. You gotta play one-on-one with the receiver, especially when you're going to this next level. It's gonna be a big test for these guys when they get thrown into the fire against Devontae Adams, against some of the best receivers in the National Football League. And I think on the surface, Christian Gonzalez isn't going to look phased. Obviously, is he going to get toasted? We don't know. But I think Christian Gonzalez, I think he's very comfortable. I think that comes from confidence and being prepared. I think in the run game, I think we see a little more. Swagger in him. I think he comes downhill. Make some big hits, especially if it's run, if it's some short, quick game passes. He's a very hard hitter. He oozes confidence throughout that Oregon defense, and I think wherever he goes in the draft, I think he'll give that team some extra confidence themselves. Yep. And I think it's physicality through action. Obviously, all defensive backs, when a pass goes up, you got to make sure to get pass breakups. You got to be swinging your hands around when a receiver has their hands on a ball. You got to, you're taught to do that stuff. But he does a good job with pass breakups. He's not waiting for a guy to catch it and come down and then punch it out. He is ready to just get as many pass breakers as possible, incomplete passes, get the defense off the field. So I really like Christian Gonzalez as a prospect. Moving on down, guy with the same height, but he's a lot smaller than him. Emmanuel Forbes, not on your list, from Mississippi State. By the way, Christian Gonzalez is a player comp. I had Patrick Surtain from the Denver Broncos. I think they, size and I think that really plays a big part into it. And I think Gonzalez is going to end up on the West Coast. I got Emmanuel Forbes, Mississippi State, 6'1", 166. He's kind of a jack in the box. Quarterbacks will throw it across the field, and he's over on one side of the field, and now he's on the other. You just don't see him. He's a ball magnet. I think he had 6 interceptions this past season for Mississippi State. Did a really good job of just making plays on the ball. I think he's got solid closing speed on pass catchers, especially in the screen game. Say he's playing off 8 or 10 yards off the football, and they hit a quick hot route, and he's coming downhill. He is converging at the receiver, and he's doing a very good job of finishing him off. And then I think with him, he's another guy like Keely Ringo that would fit really well in zone schemes. I think a team like the Cincinnati Bengals would do some well picking him up in maybe the second round if he's available. And I think he would fit a scheme like that very well. I saw some stuff on tape where he was getting beat. He had some pass breakups, but I think no one's going to really get by him if he's playing cover 3. Hopefully not if he's playing 10, 15 yards off the receiver. But I think zone scheme is really going to fit him well. And I'd actually compare him, to a guy like Marcus Peters, who played for the Baltimore Ravens, free agent in the NFL. I think they're wired the same. They move the same. I just see a lot of Marcus in him. He might make a big impact like Marcus did his rookie year in Kansas City and the 3 or 4 other teams he went to in that time frame. But I really like seeing that comparison. It just gives me some Marcus Peters vibes back in 2015. And then to safety, Brian Branch, 6 foot, 190 from Bama. I think closing speeds really well as as a safety, coming all the way downhill. He does a very good job of that. Finishing power, he's made some pretty big hits. He has punished some tight ends. He's punished some slot receivers. He's punished running backs, and I think he's a scheming chess piece. They love to blitz him. Any team that gets their hands on Brian Branch, they're going to love the scheme and just use him on blitzes on the edge, use him on blitzes up the middle. Have a safety who's good enough to play deep and play free high and hold the fort back over there. But I think a team able to get Brian Branch to chess. And I compare him to a fellow Crimson Tide member and someone on your favorite team, Brady. I think Minkah Fitzpatrick in a way. I don't think he has the ball skills like Minkah Fitzpatrick. He has the physical attributes and abilities like Minkah Fitzpatrick when it comes to being a chess piece and using him in blitzes and finishing power and closing speed like that. I think it echoes Minkah Fitzpatrick. So, and obviously Minkah, I mean, he's got a nose for football and getting interceptions, but yeah, that's the stops for the defensive backs. You got any final before we get on here, Brady?
I just feel like overall it's a solid defensive class, but we've had better ones. And that's not to hate on these guys. We do still have the defensive tackles in a different episode to bring up, but that's about it in terms of these guys. Definitely a good corner class, and a very solid edge class as well. Not a great linebacker class or safety class, but overall, definitely some interesting guys on these teams. And another corner I actually do want to bring up because I didn't think about it was the Iowa guy. I'm trying to think of his name. Oh, Riley Moss, 33 from Iowa.
Riley Moss. Okay.
He's a history of getting pick sixes. And he just always, like, I don't know if he's ever been beat. That's the crazy thing. Like, he played on the best defense, arguably the best defense in America this past season, and he never really got beat. Not saying he should be a first-round pick or anything, but I think he's definitely a guy you should keep an eye on. Everybody should keep an eye on.
Yep. Definitely, man. You got to keep an eye on those late gems overall. That's where, it's insane that nearly, I think 60 to 65% of the NFL is made up of, guys that were picked in. Actually, I think it's more like 75% of guys were picked in at least day 3 or undrafted. It's unbelievable how that goes. So, don't sleep on day 3 when it comes to some of these corners and just guys in general that are getting picked. I mean, those guys are going to be plug and play guys that are going to be starters for your favorite teams. Next NFL Draft Talk episode, we're going to be talking about running backs, offensive line, and defensive linemen, all stuff in the trenches. And then the third draft talk will be about quarterbacks and pass catchers. That'll be a very fun one. So obviously a lot of loaded stuff coming up for us. If you watch this far, drop a like on the video, subscribe, do what you got to do. We appreciate your support.